almost everything in your life, it's your mind telling you that it's impossible. And once your mind tells you that you have to do it and it's possible, you'll be able to do it.
Hello and welcome to AG Speaks Digital Marketing Talk Show. Here we share with you cool tools, tips and tricks, and lots of useful information and insights to help you get more leads and customers for your business. Hi everybody. So as promised, I'm coming live and I'm going to be joined by Sun Yi, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with him. We are live.
Hi, how are you?
How are you today? How are you this morning?
Good. How do you say your name? Anju? Anju?
It's Anjuli, Anjuli, Anjuli.
Anjuli? Nice to meet you, finally.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I've been watching you, following you, and really inspiring stuff. And I'm so happy to kickstart my first IG live with somebody like you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, I have a little bit of a vision problem, so I don't see very well. So I'm seeing a lot of comments popping up, but I'm not able to read the comments, okay? So, yeah, so we'll have to figure a way out to manage this.
I'll keep an eye on the comments. I'm not really good at it, but...
Okay, so let me start our conversation because I have a purpose on why I want to do this chat with you, and I wanted to sort of capture your journey as an entrepreneur. So I want to know how you got started and, your backstory a little bit.
I always wanted to be a boss, ever since I was young. I never knew what that meant, right? I wanted to start a business. I didn't think about business, what type of business or anything like that, but I always wanted to be a boss, because I didn't want to work for someone or something like that. So even when I was younger, I always knew that I was going to start a company. You know what that entails, right? But when I started my company, it actually turned out not to be what I thought. Being an entrepreneur, owning a business, being a boss is actually a lot harder and not as glamorous as most people think. Because you see them on TV, you see CEOs and TV and things like that. You're like, yeah, that's what I want to be. But when you're in real life, when I started 2 or 3 years into it, I realized that when you're a boss. So what I tell people is, if what you want is to be a boss and you don't want a boss, if you don't want a boss, that's the worst reason to start a business, because when you work in a company, you have one boss, right? And the company, everybody that's working in the company, they make sure everything is run. They make sure you get your paycheck every 2 weeks, and you don't have to worry about anything but making your boss happy. But when you start a company, now everyone's your boss. All your clients are your boss. Your employees are your boss. Your vendors are your boss. Your landlord is your boss.
Absolutely.
Everyone's your boss, because you have to make sure everyone's happy, because
that's true.
Nobody cares about your business as much as you. So yeah, that's kind of what I realized, being a boss kind of sucks. But I also learned that, you have to do all of those things to do the things that you really want to do. So with that responsibility comes kind of like a freedom, or it comes with its own benefits.
Yes. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, as they say, right?
Exactly.
So tell me, Sun, how long did you continue to work for others before you decided to take that leap of faith and said to yourself, okay, I'm ready to take the leap and start on my own?
I've worked kind of when I was in college. I've worked ever since I was in high school, but my first real full-time job was at an agency. And then I would say about 7 years I worked before I started my company.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I started my company right out of college, but it was kind of we didn't make money. That was the time when I just wanted to be a boss, right? I didn't know what a business was.
Right.
Money. So it was kind of like a side hustle, but an actual company, I would say about 7 years after that.
Yeah. Similar to me, I worked for 10 years before I decided to quit full-time work, but my reasons were a little bit different. My reasons were I wanted to raise my girls, and the work was just getting too much, to manage house front, family, everything was just getting too much.
And my decision was taken in the public toilet of an international airport when I was squeezing breast milk on a toilet seat. And I was like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
That's a great story.
But having said that, when you started, like even when I started, I went through a lot of struggles. So I want to hear a little bit about what were the early challenges when you started on your own and you took that leap of faith? What were some of the struggles that you faced?
Yeah, so faced like a lot of challenges, but there's two moments when, so you know Seth Godin?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so you know how Seth Godin talks about the dip, that when you're starting out on something that nothing's really gonna happen, and it actually goes to a point where you have a dip, past that dip before you actually start growing, right?
Right.
So a lot of people talk about the dip, but I don't know if a lot of people actually experience that. Like I've clearly experienced the dip twice in my life. I mean, I've experienced it a lot more, but I've experienced it twice in business, right? So when I first started freelancing, I had about like 1 year worth of savings, so I can live for a year, and then if I don't make money, I would have to go get a job, right? So when that happened, I worked hard for like 11 months,
right?
And I kept putting myself out there. I started like posting my stuff everywhere, promoting, but I didn't make any money, right? Like the first client that I got only paid us like $1,800 and for 9 months of work. I got $3,000 for 3 months of work. So basically in 11 months, I made less than $5,000. And it was like, but I still put everything into those projects. I try to make like the best website possible. So, and then at that 11th month, I was literally like 2 weeks away from, I was actually starting to look for jobs. Because in 2 weeks, I have to pay rent. And then like, I don't even know how I'm gonna pay rent, right? I don't even know how. So I'm like, I need to find a job. So I was gonna do that, but then I got a call, and it was for a website project that was like $10,000, and
Nice.
it would have been like 1 month. Would have been like 4 weeks of work, and then like immediately after that, like within 3 weeks, I got another project which was like $17,000, and it just my freelance career kind of took off from there. But I was like that close to like, I'm so glad I didn't quit then, because if I did, that next part would have never came, right?
Right.
And so that was my freelance career, and then I kind of went to work for my friend. I kind of became a partner at another agency during that time. Like I merged like my freelance gig with that company for 2 years. I'm back in like the safe, getting paycheck every 2 weeks type of deal. But then I didn't like it there, so I decided to start my own company, which is my company right now, Night Owls. And when I started Night Owls, I went through that again. So the first year, somebody asked what was the reason for this breakthrough. It wasn't really a breakthrough. It was just like, it just everything happened at the right time. I was just so close to giving up. When I got there, when I started my company, what happened was after a year, towards that year was probably the worst year of my life, because at that time I was married. Me and my wife had to rent out our apartment on Airbnb just so that we can use that money to employees for 2 of our employees. We were not making any money. We actually borrowed money from like family. And towards the end of that year, like everybody around was telling us, you should just give up. You should get a job. But for some reason at that time, I knew that was the dip, right? I like everything in my body was telling me that this is the dip. If I just get through this part, everything is going to be okay. So I wasn't as scared, but at the same time, my wife was. Everybody around me was like saying, like, what are you doing, son? But then again, when I passed that dip, after like 2 months of like sleeping in the office, like we were sleeping in the office in Airbnb, we would go to the gym in the morning just to take a shower, because then we didn't have a shower in the office. And then after that 2 weeks, it just took off. And within, I think, 2 years after that, we were doing $1 million a year. But
Wow, wow, that's so awesome. That's an amazing story. So when did you start? Did you start hiring people to work for you, on your permanent roles, or did you first manage to get work done virtually, not have anybody on your permanent roles? And when did you decide that, okay, now I need to have people, permanently hired within your company?
yeah, so I already had clients,
Right.
but maybe not enough clients to actually hire a full team. But so my company, a lot of times we hire interns, train them for like 6
Okay.
months, and then we hire them as a designer or developer, whatever the full-time role is.
Right.
And I started that right from the beginning because the previous company I worked in, like I saw that the employees that they already had were not like the best employees. The best employees were the interns that I hired, that I trained,
That you
actually turned out
trained.
to be the best employees. And somewhere along the line, I learned like, okay, like it's actually not about how talented somebody is or how much experience somebody has if their experience is wrong, right? Mondo Go Diary said, I'm a designer as well. I feel like as designers, we become very versatile professional after starting your own company. How did you decide what to focus when looking for clients? What was the decision? Okay, I can get into that, but let me finish answering your question. So that kind of became like, I love like hiring interns that are passionate and wanted to learn, then kind of training them. And those actually always ended up becoming the best employees. And a lot of our interns, like they come to our company like I was like zero, and 3 years later they're either starting their own agency or they're going to work at like huge tech startups, getting like $150,000 a year. So they progress pretty quickly. So that's kind of how we've been doing a lot of our hiring. So in the beginning, yeah, we started with interns and
Understood. Great. Yeah, yeah. Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that breaking off and figuring out a way to delegate. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are still running the solo armies, one person armies.
Almost everyone.
Yeah, so it's been something that I've been, mostly a one person army, and I've sort of got people on board as and when on a project to project basis. And that's something I've struggled with because I keep looking for my clones. But what you say makes sense, that if you can take an intern and then train them, to your expectations and, to what your standard is, then I think that could be a good opportunity. That is something I will definitely consider.
So almost everyone I talk to is like that. Almost every freelancer designer that I talk to and things like that is like, yeah, but I say like Delegate, why don't you work with other people, blah, blah, blah. And they just don't trust it. They're like, oh, no, they're just not going to be able to do it like I do, right? And a lot of them say, oh, it'll just be faster if I do it myself.
Yeah.
These are the responses that I always get, right? And it's because it's partly because of I think control. Like a lot of designers are very controlling, and they don't want to give up that control. And a second thing is, like, designers are just terrible managers. I am too, right? One of the and because I'm such a perfectionist, I'm all of those things. I'm probably like the worst. So it took me a long time to learn how to delegate. And the final breakthrough that I came to is that if you're going to delegate design work, first of all, you have to give up that control. You have to be okay for that person to make mistakes, for that person to, do the wrong thing, right? And it might take them 3 months, 6 months, where they understand you and they're delivering work that, is up to par with your expectations. And that's okay. So expect that failure first. And what I do is, but you can't micromanage. You can't go in there and just micromanage every day. You know what I mean? So
you have to give people a loose rope. Definitely.
So what I usually do is I give them the task and I let them run with it, right? I let them make all the decisions and things like that in the beginning, expecting that they can fail, that they might not deliver. So then you give yourself another few days before you actually have to deliver it to the client. And if you need to fix something right there, you do it. But still give them that first chance to fail. That's so important. You have to give them Yeah.
Right.
So his question is, how did you decide on what to focus on looking for clients? Was it a decision? Starting a comparison. So maybe you can elaborate. Do you mean like where to niche down on or something like that? Because I do agree, right? Like a lot of designers that freelance wants to also become entrepreneurs, right? Wants to also be like the businessman, right? A businesswoman. I was like that. I was struggling with that for a while, and at one point I just had to admit, Gary Vee talks about this a lot, like self-awareness is so important. You have to know who you are, right? Are you a creator or are you a seller? Or are you like an operator, right? Seller/operator. Because I'm great at, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm good at sales. I can sell anything. But if you're an entrepreneur, I think the personality that really defines an entrepreneur is, do you love the heat? Do you love like the pressure, solving problems? Like for me, what happened was when I grew my company to like 20 people, from the moment I wake up till the moment I went to bed, I was getting angry texts from clients, like unhappy employees like coming and complaining to me, like employees like saying they want to quit, they want to raise. Meanwhile, like trying to keep the cash flow going to keep the company alive, pleasing everybody around me and just putting out flyers all day long from the moment I wake up. I wasn't doing any design work, right? And
right. I can imagine.
Yeah. If you want to run a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to love that stress. You have to love that pressure. You have to love that angry email from the client. Like if you don't love that, that means you're not cut out to be an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
For me, I learned that like 3 or 4 years into it. And once I accepted it, I found somebody else to take care of that stuff for me. Somebody who loves that, who's actually good at it. But if you try to wear both hats, in my opinion, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, I hear you. That brings me to a question where like you said, you've got to be self-aware as to what is your strength and what you bring to the table, and then figure out a way to complement yourself with other skill sets which other may bring to the table. So you have to be very clear about what you need to complement your skill sets and who you need to bring to the table to form like a good set. Like, because I consider myself as somebody who's not good at sales. So, and that's been a mindset. Maybe, I have a very different style of selling. Like I will probably de-sell myself first. Like I'll say, I don't think, I'm in the right place for you. I don't think I'm the right person or something like that. But that's because I have the interest of the other person foremost. I'm not selling just to make money. I'm here to sort of help and really add value. That's my core intention, that I should bring value to the table to you at the end of the day. So I sometimes end up unselling myself. And so my husband is a hardcore sales guy. He's like he's like through salesperson. So he keeps telling me that, you gotta be aggressive. You have to sell. You have to start selling immediately. You have to show them the vision. You have to, paint the vision of what they can achieve and, stuff like that. And I sort of have always believed that under promise, over deliver. So that's been my way of looking at things. And I sort of err on the side of being cautious. So
yeah, I'm the same way with you. I sell just like you, but at the same time, what I learned is that if I'm gonna do that, I have to charge a lot. I'm not shy about that. I tell them up front that, it's like that. I don't know. There's that movie called Primal Fear with Richard Gere.
Yeah.
He said he's a lawyer, and he's like, he tells every client he meets the first time, have you been saving for a rainy day? Because it's raining. Like, that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, if you get into an engagement with me, this is going to cost you. We're going to be at least 3-4 times more expensive than other agencies. Clearly set that expectation up front. But for that, this is what you get. Okay with it? Not everyone is, but yeah, I think you have to be careful when you're giving that much and when you're providing that much value. You also have to make sure that you're charging that much too.
Yeah. And I think you have to approach it from a mindset where you're sort of, the fear is that you don't want to disappoint your client, right? So I think you have to approach it from a point of that, no, you will delight them and you will be able to exceed their expectations if you put in the work. Being a little, you know what I mean, holding your back.
And you provide design services?
So what I do is I've pivoted like 3 times in my business, and I'm still on a path to figure out, you know, what is it that I really want to do. I'm going with the flow right now. So currently, right now, I'm focused on basically helping you build your Instagram influence, and I've sort of designed a course around that. It's like a 6 module deep dive course, which will help you to figure out, first of all, why you need to be on Instagram, what's your purpose. It's not just about likes and, you know, follows and just doing the blind vanity metrics chase. So you have to figure out why you want to be. So I cover that in a logical step-by-step fashion, what I call a 6 C's to success framework, which I've designed. And I'm hoping to, you know, sort of add value to more and more people's lives through that course. So that's where I am right now.
That's not, so you're not doing client work now?
I do client work. I do client work as well. But during the COVID period, I got a little bit of a breather when my client work got suspended. So I utilized that time to sort of listen well to the community. And I figured that there is a need for this. And a lot of people, like, I have a group. I've got a Facebook group where a lot of entrepreneurs are part of that group. And usually it'll be silent. But every time I talked about Instagram, there were like lots of comments, lot of questions. People wanted to know, you know, how to make it happen on Instagram. So when I listened to the community, I figured that, you know, there is a need where people want to know what works on Instagram and how they can, you know, make use of this platform for their business. So that got me thinking, and things so turned out that time Thinkific is a company which is like a course LMS platform company. They had launched during the COVID time. They had launched something called an entrepreneur growth fund, and I got picked up for that. And I was like, things are aligning, everything is happening, and I got connected with a mentor who gave me a complete mentorship for 5 to 6 hours for free. And they said that, okay, they'll guide you on, you know, how to set up the whole process, how to, you know, set the course or get rolling. And so, you know, I was like, I announced to the world, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And look at my thing. I thought that it'll be just like maybe 1 to 2 hours kind of a workshop or something like that. But I was wrong. And so when I started diving deep, I figured, man, this is going to take time. And I put like a pressure on myself because I declared to the world that I will launch this course by a certain date. Now, my mentor gave me a bright idea, and she said, look, Anjuli, don't wait to finish the whole thing before you sort of start off. You just start off on your journey and take the people who are sort of with you, along with you on the journey. And so I started doing every week a lesson. With whoever cared to join my live class, right? So I started doing these regular weekly Zoom sessions during this entire COVID lockdown period. So it started on 15th of July. And for 14 weekends, every Thursday, consistently, I got these people and who would join me live, and I would research the topic and come up with the, you know, whole content for that module, for that session. And that's how I ended up creating this course. And those people stayed with me right throughout these 14, 15 sessions. And that's how I was able to, you know, work towards it.
Yeah. So you did a pre-sale.
I almost like did a pre-sale, and I built the course along with my folks. I was getting like live feedback from whoever was, you know, taking my course. And I used to like get real live feedback that this is what they really want to know. This is what they need to learn. So it was a very interesting process, and it's now towards the end, and I'm going to launch it officially maybe towards November, December.
Saraswati and Hina is saying hi to you.
Yeah, so this course is now available, and I'm going to be launching it. Hopefully, let's see how many people I can add value to.
There's a question for you.
Sure.
How do you define what you charge and client expectations? I feel there is also education process, because sometimes they just want to see instant likes and follows, and they don't understand the value of content long term.
Right. So I sort of try and make my clients understand their why. You know, once you're clear about your why you want to be in that business, or what is it that you're trying to achieve through those likes. Because what happens is many times, you know, you can buy those followers just through all sorts of means, but they're not your true people. They're not your true tribe. So it really doesn't help you, right? So even if you like during this process, I got so many offers, son, you won't believe it. 1,000 followers for $75, stuff like that, right? So as a business owner, I keep telling my clients or anybody who cares to join my course that it's not the numbers of followers or likes that you are getting. It does not matter. Ultimately, what converts is what really people, the little few people who really care about you. Coming back to Seth Godin's formula of the, what I call the minimum viable audience, right? So you're not there for everybody and everybody is not for you, right? So you figure out who do you really want to serve and how can you attract that tribe. And eventually you end up attracting that tribe just by, you know, staying true to your purpose of why you started that business in the first place. So I try to tell this to my clients, and if somebody is not buying that argument or that belief, then they're not the right person for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just grabbing water. Yeah, for me, it's been a while since I faced that problem. But what I learned is that people actually don't. Yeah, you can't. When you sell, what I found is when you're in sales, the most important thing is to make them feel like they're being heard, they're being understood, and they're being seen, right? If you can do those things, nothing else. Budget, price doesn't matter. Your experience doesn't matter. Your portfolio doesn't matter. None of those things matter if you can do those things, right? But what I see most creatives, most agencies, like these social media freelancers, what I see them doing is they do everything else but that. They focus on like trying to explain them the value of this. They're like, oh, look at all these things that I've done. Look at all the awards I've won. Look at all these clients that I show results for. But what they don't do is listen to the client.
You know, when you were away, I was telling them about just today I was preparing a project, a proposal for a client for who, you know, they reached out to me because everybody wants leads and everybody wants customers at the end of the day, right? It's a B2B kind of a client that I was preparing the proposal for. And so the way I started approaching that whole proposal that I prepared for them was that if this was my business, if I had to do this for my own self, what would I do? What are the key things that I will do, you know, to get that traction or that lead pipeline building? And how would I spend my own money, you know, if it were my money? So that's how I sort of approach whenever I'm preparing my proposals. And again, I have a conflict with my husband because, like I told you, he's like a hardcore sales guy, and he's like, "No, you're going to undersell. You have to price yourself higher." And I was like, "No, but if I was doing it for my own company, I would be so frugal about it, right? I would be really careful about how I spend the money." So I think there's again, I sort of tend to put myself in the customer's shoes quite a bit, even when it comes to putting that price on the project proposal as well. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't do that because, I mean, if you, because then it's going to be hard for you to grow, right? In terms of pricing.
Yeah, in fact, that brings me, you know, that is one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, and honestly, I struggle with that. So it's important that I ask you this question is that at what point in your life and what mindset shift is required to make that, you know, decision that you're not going to underprice yourself and, you know, how will you price yourself right? So when did you decide that you're going to just take that leap of faith, price yourself high, say no to the underpaying customers? When did you reach that point?
Yeah, you're absolutely right? Like the analogy that I heard is that you're gonna receive however big your plate is, right? So if your plate is small, like that's how much you're gonna get. But if your plate is big, you're gonna get more, right? And a lot of people, they have small plates, so they're trying to like they're complaining that, oh, I have so much work and I'm not making enough money and things like that. but they're still living with this small plate, right? So when they go on a sales call, when you start talking about price, all of a sudden like you get this like nervousness in your body. You know, you're everything in your body is fighting against. I don't want to talk about money. You know, like, well, what should I say? I don't want to price them too high and scare them away. I don't want to price them too low, so
Yeah.
that's gonna hurt. Things like
Sure.
that. For me, I had to just. I personally was struggling with the same thing, but I gradually moved up. And now looking back, like when I first started, I was charging $5,000 to $10,000 for a website, and I thought that was a lot, right? So I was like, oh, there's no way I can ask for $20,000. Nobody's gonna pay that, right?
Yeah.
But when I sold websites for at $10,000, like 3 or 4 websites, I was like, oh, I haven't gotten those yet, so I raised it a little bit to like 15,000, and then I didn't get no for like another 3 or 4 times, and then I raised it to 40,000, and I didn't get no, so I raised it to like 30,000, and I didn't get no, and then I raised it to like 40,000, and then 50,000. So I just kept moving up, like little by little by little, and now.
I hear you. I totally hear you. So I'm on that path. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to coach myself, and I've sort of connected with somebody who has been there, done that. And he's saying, Anjuli, you just need to add one more zero in front of your price. I was like,
No, that's exactly what I was gonna get to. Right now, I'm charging $50,000 to $100,000 for a website. Right now, like somebody would email me saying, "Hey, can I jump on a call with you?" Blah blah blah. Like my wife manages all the emails. Like she would reply to them and say, "Yeah, the budget is going to be between $80,000 to $120,000," and they're like, "That's fine." Like they still want. So what I'm trying to say is, right now I see that back then I could have been charging that much and people would have paid it, but I just wasn't because I was scared. Do you know what I mean?
that's true.
And that was literally the only thing that was stopping me from charging that much back then, is my own fear.
Yep. Yep.
So
It's all here. It's all here in the mind.
So I understand that it's hard to go from like $10,000 to $100,000, right? It's not an easy thing to. It's easier said than done, right? Just add a zero, right? That's it. It's easy to say, but then you actually do it, it's not that easy, right? So
Yeah.
for people like that, maybe don't just add zero. Maybe just go from 10,000 to 20,000.
Yeah.
And then from 20,000 to 30,000, right? Slowly move up so that fear is, diminished. Realize.
Start saying no to customers, like when somebody said, no, you're too expensive, and did you start saying no confidently? And when did that start to happen in your journey?
So for me, what I always tell people is, if you are truly providing value and you're doing amazing work, it's a matter of time when you have to start turning away clients. For me right now, I have to turn away 9 out of 10 people.
Wow.
So it's easy for me to say no because I know there's another one. I know that my schedule is booked up till February. I can't even take on clients till February, right? So that is going to happen. But the only way that's going to happen is if you deliver more than what you get, right? So I've always had that mentality. Even when I was working at a company, all my friends, my coworkers, like, son, you're working too hard. Like, son, like, don't kill yourself. Like 2 other things they always say is like, they're not paying you enough for this shit. Or another thing they say is like, what's in it for me, right? Like that's what people always say, what's in it for me, right?
Yeah.
But I used to always say, like, okay, I'm stupid. Like, I'm killing myself for nothing, and they're not gonna appreciate me, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I want to, right? Because I actually really enjoy doing the work, right?
Yeah.
And every company that I went into, when I went in, I was dispensable, right? They can just fire me and replace me with anyone else. But 6 months into it, year into it, because I was doing this, I got to a point where I became indispensable. They couldn't fire me anymore. Not only that, however much money I asked for, they have to give to me now.
Right.
And I kept doing that in every company that I worked at, right? And then I started making more money, more money. When I started my company, I did the exact same thing. I always deliver more than what they pay me, right? And even now, even though they pay me obscene amount of money, I still over deliver, right? If they pay me $50,000 for a website, I'm going to make sure they get $1 million back.
Right,
Do you know what I
right,
mean?
right. Yeah.
So I always over deliver. And what ends up happening is when you keep doing that, like, so a great example is like, I made a pivot about 5 years ago from doing like healthcare niche to working with personal brands.
Right.
And that came because a client named Gabby Bernstein came to us. We made a website for her, but I just like made that the best personal brand website there is, right? And then I just went over deliver. So she was so appreciative. And what ended up happening is that website got featured like on all these blogs that people say like the top 10 personal brand websites, right? And then she would always rank on there.
Right.
Everybody that goes to our website like loved how the website. She let us put a link on the bottom of our page, bottom of our website.
Right.
Every time she goes to an event where she's in a room full of other motivational speakers or like best-selling authors, like she would be, everyone would be asking her, Gabby, who did your website? I love your website, right? And she would be like, oh, I have the best web designer, right? So things like that will keep happening as long as you over deliver, right? If you're putting out great work, other people are going to start asking, oh, who did your website?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love your social media. Who manages your social media?
Absolutely.
People are going to start saying that. And that once you get there, you're going to be trust me, you're going to be turning down clients.
That's true. Yeah,
it's been so long.
I hear you. I hear you. In fact, when I started my first business, I was in the fashion industry. My background is in the fashion. And when I quit my job, I sort of started to give back to the industry whatever I had learned in my, stint in the corporate world. And it simply started like that. So my first client had come to me just by, one factory was willing to give me that chance because I had certain credibility. And because I over-delivered, then just the word got spread. One thing led to the other. And I never literally had to sell myself. The business kept coming to me. I didn't have to go after it. So that's what I experienced. So I hear, what you're saying. Now, having said that, because I pivoted very late into this completely different field, like from fashion and sourcing and, costing of garments and apparel, I moved into a totally different field, which is digital marketing. And when I almost like self-taught myself, completely self-taught myself, everything, to do with digital marketing. And I did it from not being in an agency. I didn't work for an agency. I didn't work for a company. So I've sort of learned from the outside, just being on my own and, having run one business. And then I decided to switch. I went through a bad phase where I'd, sort of broken my leg and I was wheelchair bound for a long time, like almost 8 months. I was like wheelchair bound. I'd lost my job. It was like a very dark period. And that's when I decided to pivot into completely something different, something new. So whatever I've learned, on my own from the outside. And maybe that is one of the reasons why I don't have that confidence as yet to sort of ask for the price that I think I deserve. Hopefully I'll get there. I'll get there soon. But thank you for that insight. That was a very wonderful insight that you don't do it overnight. You do it bit by bit. And you continue to over deliver. And so, but have you ever had a chance of, an unhappy customer or unhappy client?
Yeah, in the beginning. What you mentioned is something valuable because, and I think this might answer that other guy's question from before. In the beginning, I always thought that it was my responsibility to make sure I deliver something and they get a return on it, right? So if they come to me, they hire me to do a sales page, I do a sales page, then they have to at least make that money back and more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I always thought, and if they don't do that, then I didn't deliver my value, right?
Right.
I thought like that, and that's what kept me from being confident because I'm like, okay, what if I do the sales page for them? They pay me, $20,000 for the sales page, and they launch their program, and they only make, $10,000 from them in sales. Back then, then I failed, right?
Yeah.
And so I always felt this like pressure to have to make sure that they they get their return, that they make their revenue and things like that. And there was like there was one thing that kept me from being confident. Another thing that kept me from being confident is like, what if I deliver something and they don't like it? Right?
Yeah.
What if they don't design, or they don't like what I did for them, or what if the result? Or what if they can come back to me and like they're unhappy? So but the longer I did this, what I realized is that it's their business. It's not my business. It's not my responsibility for them to bring that revenue, right? If they don't want to pay for Facebook ads and drive, if they have zero traffic to that page, and so therefore they don't convert, that's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility.
Right.
Because if it was, then it would be my business. I would be making money from it.
That's a very valid point you make, son. That's a very valid point, because we are not the business. We are just playing one part of the business. You know, we are contributing to one part of the whole piece.
Yeah, they're paying you for service, right? So what you have to do is you have to deliver on your service. Like,
yes.
Be kind, be of service. Don't be an asshole. Like, do all the things that to over deliver in your service, right?
Yeah.
If they come to me and they're not happy, then I'm gonna be like, oh, you're not happy. I'm gonna fix that for you. What can I do to fix that for you? What can I do to make you happy? Like, that's my job, is to serve. I'm a servant.
Right.
And once I switched my mind like that, it was like a night and day. Like I became more, like, I'm not confident that you hire me, you're gonna get $1 million in return. But I'm 100% confident that you hire me, that I'm gonna make you happy. I'm gonna deliver. I'm gonna work hard for you, and there's nobody else out there is gonna work harder for you and care about you as much as me.
Absolutely.
I'm confident in that, and I sell with that confidence.
And that's what you control, right? Because the rest of it is not even in your control.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings me to the next question that I wanted to ask you is, who are your top 3 mentors that you have learned from, and what each of those taught you? What did you learn from them?
So I don't have like mentors that I actually like call and stuff like that. I learn a lot from like YouTube, watching YouTube. I get into different types of people, like Seth Godin, like Gary Vee, like those type of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, like, 3 people that influenced me the most in my life would be, number 1, my mom. So when I was young, there was a time when I first came to America, I didn't speak English, and I had to do this English assignment. And every night she would like check my homework. And this one night I didn't do it. I'm like, there's no way I can do it. Like, I don't understand anything. It was a reading and writing assignment. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And I thought she was just going to let me go to sleep. But she's like, no, she sat me in the kitchen table. Was like, you're not going to sleep until you finish it. And it was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Like, it kept going. But in my mind, I wasn't thinking because in my mind, the assignment is impossible. There's no way I can do it, right? So I wasn't even trying to do it. I was sitting there just trying to outlast her. So it was like this kind of battle between me and her to see let's see who can last longer, right?
And not doing the work, right? You were like just
not doing the work. I'm just like, yeah, let's see how long you can stay awake, right? And then it kept going until like 3 a.m. and I was so tired, and she's just not budging. And at that moment, I can see that she's not gonna let me go to bed until I finish. Like, she's serious.
What a story.
So I just put my head down and I worked on it. Like, I just looked up the dictionary and I just did it. And I literally finished the whole thing in 30 minutes.
Wow.
So I could have done that hours ago, just finish it and go to bed. Yeah. But telling myself that this is impossible is what stopped me. And that was like one of the biggest lessons that I learned, because almost everything in your life, it's your mind telling you that it's impossible.
Yep.
And once your mind tells you that you have to do it and it's possible, you'll be able to do it. And
absolutely.
It's literally like one of the biggest lessons I learned in my life. And when I look back now, I'm like, how hard that must have been, right, for my mom to stay up that late.
Yeah.
She has to go to work the next morning too. She's also tired, but for her to do that just to teach me that lesson.
Absolutely. I think she just wanted to teach you that lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
And it stayed with you.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom is one. My former business partner from that company that I was telling you. So this is an example of how you can learn you can learn. You can learn from bad examples just as much as a mentor. Like
Absolutely.
sometimes you can learn what not to do because he was such a bad boss. I just hated being treated a certain way. Things like that. That when I started my company, like I learned what not to do from those examples. So you can actually learn a lot of life lessons by looking at somebody that you don't want to be like, right? The last one, I don't know. I just get inspired from everyone. Sometimes I get inspired by my employees. Sometimes I get inspired by a little child. You can get inspiration from everywhere. Sometimes I learn, things from my wife.
Wonderful. I think I'm a little bit similar in that sense because I take inspiration from everyone and anyone. And I believe that there is an extraordinary hiding in every ordinary person out there. And I keep looking for that extraordinariness in the everyday kind of situations, in the everyday people, in the most ordinary folks. I remember, like, I've learned from, because I come from India, I've learned from, cycle rickshaw drivers, receptionists at a, office desk. I've just learned from all sorts of people. Everybody has some pearl of wisdom to share with you if you catch them in the right moment. So I hear you. I think I'd like to end this, chat. We've been at it for some time now. And the last thing that I want to ask you is that if Sun Yi had to restart his business from scratch, if you had to start from scratch, would you do it any differently? And how would you do it differently this time? So my intention behind asking this question to you is, what advice, now that you are wiser from experience of having, whatever experiences you've gained in your life, how are you wiser now? And what would you advise to somebody who is starting out?
Yeah. So, like literally, I wouldn't change it because I learned everything through my experience. But the biggest lesson that I learned from being an entrepreneur is that I used to be the most egotistical, like self-absorbed, like narcissist, right? Like it was all about me. When I started a business, it was all about me, like getting respect. I want to win arguments. I want to prove myself. Like I want to show the client how smart I am. It was all about me. That in every meeting I went to, I need to impress this guys, right? Like, and the biggest lesson I learned is that, the success actually comes when you, like I said, when you treat your employees like they're the boss. And I'm here to serve. Like,
yeah, it's similar to what Ken Blanchard calls about servant leaders.
Yeah, exactly. So I literally think of myself as a servant. I'm literally like no matter who I'm working with, who I'm with, I'm at the bottom of that totem pole. I'm literally like everybody else is my boss. I'm here to serve them, whether it's employees, like clients, whatever it is. Like I am literally nobody. Like nothing is about me, and everything is about them. Like that mentality is something I wish I have learned.
So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it useful. Your support and feedback is invaluable. So please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more such business growth hacks. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you soon.